Today, we're kind of switching gears a little bit and talking about how to strike up a conversation with strangers. I think it's something interesting that we don't talk about often enough is generally speaking, and a lot of people have different journeys, but generally speaking, you go to school, right? And you're in school for however many years, and maybe even you go to university, past school, and you're just surrounded by people who you have more in common with than you do differently. If nothing else, you're close to the same age. You are probably grouped with people who have similar interests as far as your major goes. You get out of this school environment, and it's all of a sudden like, good luck finding peers, good luck finding acquaintances, or potentially that forever person. And there's no guideline or no how do we do this thing well, how do we get to know people, how do we find our people. And I don't know who's talking about this, so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today is, you're out of school, you're in the real world, as many of you are. How do you find your people? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, I first want to say there's so many types of people. There's lots of personality types out there, but generally speaking, we're just going to group extroverts and introverts. And I realize that's a broad brush because most of us fall somewhere in the middle instead of one extreme or the other. But we can generally say, our introverts are going to be like, oh, you want me to talk to a stranger? Like, you want me to just strike up a conversation? Like, what the heck? And I see here in the comments, so many people are already like, hello, hi, just pass a compliment. Like, it's easy. I tend to be more extrovert. My dad actually modeled this really well for me. He's not a believer, and so there were some things that obviously, were I weren't modeled very well. But he was so good at just striking up conversations, and still is. He is the life of the party everywhere he goes, and just is so good at striking up conversations. So what I learned from him is just going up to people, and you can always find something in common. So I'm gonna give you a few examples. Depending on where you were, obviously, but we're going to talk about a real life example, like in the flesh, not online. And we'll talk about that as well. But in line or in the flesh, you can bring up the weather. That is always an easy one. Cold today. Oh, it's breezy, beautiful day, sunny. I don't know, whatever you want to say. Bring up the weather is such an easy way to just, yep, sure is cold. Or, oh, I know, I'm tired of the heat, whatever it may be. If they're wearing a shirt of your favorite sports team or a team who just lost last weekend, whatever, that's a way to be like, oh, how about those Broncos? I don't know, whatever it may be. Such an easy way to strike up a conversation. If you were at a restaurant, especially if you find someone who you think is cute, what if you're in line? This is an example. What if you were in line? You were at a coffee shop and someone behind you or someone in front of you could just say, never been here. What's good here? That is simple but profound. You could just say like, hey, I haven't been here. What's good here? And I want to challenge you, if you're listening and you're like, what? I could never. Start small. Start with a controlled failure. And what I mean by that is like, go to the grocery store and talk to a little old lady or someone who isn't going to think you're crazy, or someone you feel like you're just getting a good vibe. They're going to be kind to you. And strike up a conversation, talk about the weather, ask if you can reach something off the top shelf for someone. These are controlled ways to kind of get this itch scratched, if you will, to kind of practice in the playground of striking up a conversation with strangers. Because this isn't something, I do think it becomes easier, but it's not something that may become natural right away, but it can if you practice it. Very rarely has it been someone like, who are you? Leave me alone. I can't think of off the top of my head any time this has ever gone wrong. I can think of tons of times, however, that this has gone well. And I've met new friends. I've had just lighthearted conversations with people in public. We've bonded over the taco truck at the festival. There's so many instances where you can just meet friends and just talk to people. I also want to point out, if you have a pet, dogs, particularly because you can take them when you go to festivals and outdoor events and things like that. They are great conversation starters. We have an 8-month-old puppy, and I had no idea what great conversation starters these 4-legged creatures can be. We have started taking her to our daughter's cross-country races. And my word, the amount of people that talk to us now that we have this little 4-legged creature on a leash. Oh, she's so cute. What kind of dog is it? How old is she? What's her name? And then it's just an automatic. I mean, you could just so easily lead more to that. Oh, do you have a dog too? Tell me more. People love to talk about themselves too. And so when you ask questions, it's just a great lead in to learn some more. Think about it this way. You see someone at church. Let's do a coffee shop instead. You see someone at church. You think they're attractive. You're like, oh, okay. I would love to get to know this person. This feels awkward. Da, 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 da. You are already at no, meaning you don't know them. They don't know you. One of you guys are going to walk out of this coffee shop first and never see each other again. So you're already at no. And so you do go up and say, I just want to let you know, you have a lovely sweater. And you strike up a conversation and you get to know each other. That is a lot better than just saying woulda, coulda, shoulda, woulda. I just think that there's such low cost to just seeing what the heck can happen. When I was young, I moved to New York City, and if you've ever been, or if you've ever been to any big city, people are just lost all the time. People, and I was certainly one of them. And people often talk about, oh, people are rude in New York City. I found that completely untrue. I was, of course, looking lost all the time, and I had so many people come up to me, "You look lost. Do you need help?" And yes, and I did. And I'm like, point me to the Brooklyn Bridge or whatever it may be. And people were so kind. And if for some reason I wanted to continue that conversation, I think that's just an icebreaker. We're all just humans on this journey and figuring out life. And I think that it breaks the monotony when kind of seemingly out of the blue, someone strikes a conversation with you. And of course, there's so many different circumstances of life. There's, a little more serious atmospheres, if you will. There's a little more lighthearted. There's concerts and festivals, and then there's, I don't know, maybe a more studious environment. But whatever it may be, there are ways to strike up a conversation.